Okay, today we're going to look at getting on the housing ladder, and we're going to look at whether or not you should do it all at once with a big deposit and a big house, or whether you should do it in sequential steps. So I'm going to imagine a reasonable sort of lifespan here. Somebody leaves school at 18, and then we say 28, 38, 48, 58. I'm going to assume this guy's paying rent of £5,000 a year when he first leaves home, so he's not got on the housing ladder yet, but he's also saving £2,000 a year for a deposit on a house. Okay, and he's going to get a deposit of after 10 years he'll have a deposit of £20,000, and he's going to buy a house with a mortgage of £200,000, so £220,000 house. So this represents the mortgage of £200,000, and he's going to pay that down over 25 years, so he's going to aim to have paid that off by the age of 53. There we go. Now the total repayments he's going to make on that mortgage are going to be £200,000 of repayment by definition. It's going to be about 16,000 of base rates. Base rates are only 0.5%, so that's not a lot of money he's paying for base rate. But he's also going to be paying about 120,000 in the bank's sort of extra interest. Remember, at the moment, to get a mortgage on this house, he's going to be paying about 4.7% interest, of which 4.2% is the sort of banks, and 0.5% is the base rate. So the bank's going to make £120,000 out of issuing this mortgage for £200,000 over 25 years. Okay, so as we've said there, this guy has saved up a good deposit and got a reasonable value property. Supposing, however, he decides to get on the housing ladder at a lower point. So what we're going to look at now is somebody who saves up for only 5 years. So he spends 5 years paying rent, and he saves his 2,000 deposit for 5 years, so his deposit is 10,000, and this guy's going to get half the value of house, so he's going to get a house for 110,000 with a mortgage of 100,000. So £100,000 mortgage. Now, because he's got half as much mortgage, he's going to pay it down in half the time. He'll actually pay it down slightly quicker because he'll be able to reduce the interest rate, but that's an effect we're going to deal with in a later tutorial. So he's starting his mortgage age 23. We're going to assume it's going to take him 12.5 years, so he's going to be 35.5 when he's paid off this mortgage. There we go. Then when he's paid off the mortgage on his 100,000 property, what he's going to do is borrow another £100,000 and move up to the 220,000 property. Then he's going to pay that down in another 12.5 years. So he now, at this point, age 48, owns this property outright and is not paying any more mortgage. But look at the total effect this has had. Although he's paying his mortgage for the same 25 years, the same length of time, 25 years, as the guy who's got a 200,000 mortgage, his average amount of mortgage outstanding is half as much, because he's borrowed 100,000, then another 100,000, rather than 200,000. It's to do with, if you look at the area under the triangle here, plus the area under the triangle here, and compare it with the area under this big triangle, then the area under the red triangles in total is half as much. What that means is that this 120,000 banking fee is effectively cut in half. So now we're only paying 60,000 in banking fee. Also, instead of paying rent for 10 years, we've saved a lot of money by only paying rent for 5 years. So we've got 25,000 of rent here that we're going to have to pay, and we've got 25,000 of rent here that effectively we don't have to pay. So we've saved another £25,000. So our total saving is the £60,000 from the reduced mortgage repayments plus 25,000 from the reduced rent. So we've saved £85,000. Now granted, for a period here from age 28 to age 38 and a half, we will be living in a smaller property. So this £85,000 hasn't entirely gone to waste for the first person. He is actually living in a nicer property for a few years. But it's important to know how much that is costing you. And it's important to realise that saving and saving and saving for a long time to get on the housing ladder at a high point is actually a very expensive thing to do. And saving for a much shorter period of time, so therefore cutting down on your rent and getting on the housing ladder at a lower point and sequentially stepping up the housing ladder, is a much more financially efficient way to plan your finances long term. So that's a nice £85,000 saving.